What makes fat loss so hard for many people to accept is not the need to eat less or exercise more, but the sense of unfairness when the body seems to refuse to cooperate. You start cutting calories. Your face becomes noticeably leaner, your arms look more toned, your clothes feel looser. But when you look down at your stomach, the area you most want to change, nothing seems to move. That layer of fat is still there, stubborn, as if it has a will of its own. And in that moment, many people begin to doubt themselves. What am I doing wrong? In reality, the problem isn't your effort, it's the way your body is designed. Belly fat is not a normal type of fat. It's not simply excess energy stored away. On a biological level, it behaves almost like an endocrine organ. It communicates with your hormonal system, especially insulin and cortisol, two key regulators of whether your body stores or burns fat. More importantly, this fat is designed to protect you. It surrounds vital organs like the liver, pancreas, and intestines. To your body, this is not ugly fat to get rid of, but an emergency reserve that must be protected. That's why your body doesn't rush to burn it. It has to be convinced. This is something most people are never told before they start dieting. When you reduce your food intake, your body doesn't immediately switch into fat-burning mode. It doesn't cooperate the way you expect. Instead, its first response is caution. Imagine living in a system that receives a steady supply of energy every day, and suddenly that supply is reduced. To your brain, this isn't weight loss, it's a potential shortage. And in those first few days, your body won't burn fat, it will try to maintain stability. Specifically, it begins by using glycogen, the stored form of glucose, in your liver and muscles. This is a quick, easily accessible energy source, like a backup battery. When you eat less, your body draws from this reserve to fuel the brain and maintain basic functions. Interestingly, every gram of glycogen is stored with about 3 grams of water. So as glycogen is depleted, water is released. That's why in the first week, your weight can drop quickly 2, even 3-4 kilograms. But if you think that's fat, you'll soon be disappointed. Because it's not fat, it's water. It's glycogen. It's your body's initial adjustment to an energy deficit. And if you don't understand this, you can fall into a very common psychological trap. In the first week, you feel excited. You think you've cracked the code of fat loss. But by the second week, the rate of loss slows down. The scale barely moves. And that's when you start doubting the method, changing your approach, or worse, giving up. When in reality, that's exactly when things are just beginning. After about 3 to 5 days of maintaining a calorie deficit, glycogen drops low enough to trigger a more important shift. Insulin begins to decrease, and this is the real switch. Insulin is the hormone responsible for energy storage. When it's high, your body is essentially locked in storage mode. You can eat less, exercise more, but if insulin remains elevated, especially due to frequent snacking or high sugar intake, fat burning is limited. Only when insulin drops low enough does the body allow fat to be released from storage. And the word allow here isn't just metaphorical. It's a real biological mechanism. Your body doesn't burn fat because you want it to. It burns fat when it feels safe enough to do so. This is why fat loss is not a battle. It's a negotiation. If you push your body into a deficit too aggressively, eating too little, training too hard, not sleeping enough, your body interprets it as a threat. And its response won't be burn fat faster, but hold on to what matters most. And belly fat is one of the last things it will let go of. Alongside insulin, another silent factor shaping this entire process is cortisol, the stress hormone. This is where many people do everything right, yet still can't lose belly fat. They eat well, train consistently, stay disciplined, but they sleep poorly. They're constantly stressed. They live in a state of pressure. And chronically elevated cortisol signals the body to hold on to fat, especially around the abdomen. Not only that, cortisol also increases cravings for sugar. It drives you toward high-energy, easily digestible foods. And this creates a subtle biological loop. Stress makes you crave food. Eating raises insulin. Insulin blocks fat burning, and belly fat remains. This explains why two people can follow the same diet and training plan, yet get completely different results. Because behind calorie numbers is a complex hormonal system controlling the entire process. And when you maintain consistency long enough, usually after 1 to 2 weeks, your body begins to enter a new state. Glycogen is mostly depleted, insulin is lower, and, most importantly, your body starts using fat as its primary fuel source. This is what science calls metabolic flexibility. You won't feel a sudden switch. There's no dramatic on moment, but you'll notice clear signs. Your energy becomes more stable. You're no longer dependent on constant eating to stay alert. Sugar cravings drop significantly, and you begin to feel a subtle shift. Your body is no longer demanding. It's starting to self-regulate. This is the point where most people have already quit. And that's the biggest paradox of fat loss. You walk away right before your body starts working for you. And when your body enters that state, when it no longer depends on immediate energy from food, but begins to tap into stored reserves, a very important shift begins to happen, but not in the way you immediately see in the mirror. This is where many people misunderstand the entire process. They assume that once fat burning begins, their belly will shrink right away. But biology doesn't follow aesthetic logic. It follows survival logic. Your body doesn't prioritize making you look better. It prioritizes keeping you safer. That's why when fat loss truly begins, the first target isn't the subcutaneous fat you can see. The first target is visceral fat, the fat surrounding your liver, pancreas, and other vital organs. This type of fat is more dangerous to your health, but also more metabolically active. And paradoxically, that means it's the one your body burns first. You may not notice it in the mirror, but inside your body, major changes are taking place. Blood sugar becomes more stable, inflammation decreases, liver function improves, cholesterol levels get better, and all of this happens before you see your waistline shrink. This is exactly why many people feel discouraged at this stage. They don't see external results, so they assume nothing is happening. But in reality, the most important changes are happening where they can't see. Then, as visceral fat begins to decrease, your body gradually shifts towards subcutaneous fat, especially in the lower abdomen. This is the fat you can pinch, the fat you can see, and often the fat that bothers you the most. But it's also the most stubborn. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because of its biological nature. The lower belly has fewer blood vessels and fewer fat-releasing receptors. In other words, it's harder for your body to access this area compared to others. That's why you might see your face slim down, your shoulders narrow, your legs lean out, while your stomach barely changes. And if you don't understand this, it's easy to jump to the wrong conclusion. My belly fat just won't go away. But the truth is, it is going away. It's just waiting its turn. This is where patience becomes the deciding factor. Not extreme discipline, not pushing harder, but the ability to continue when results aren't immediately visible. Because once your body has completed its priority tasks, reducing visceral fat, stabilizing hormones, adapting metabolically, it will return to what you actually care about. And at that point, physical changes often happen faster than you expect. That's why so many people share the same experience. For weeks, they see almost no change in their stomach. Then suddenly, within a short period of time, everything seems to drop quickly. Not because they suddenly did something different, but because their body was finally ready. But to reach that stage, there's one factor you can't ignore, and one that's often underestimated: how you move your body. Most people see exercise as a tool to burn calories. They think the more calories they burn, the faster they lose fat. But that's only a small part of the picture. The real role of exercise isn't about how many calories you burn in a session. It's about changing how your body uses energy. When you do strength training, you build muscle. And muscle isn't just about appearance. It's metabolically active tissue. The more muscle you have, the more energy your body burns even at rest. That means you're changing your metabolic baseline, not just creating a temporary effect. And when you combine that with high-intensity training like HIIT, you trigger something called the afterburn effect. Your body continues burning fat for hours after the workout ends. But interestingly, low-intensity activities like walking, yoga, or cycling also play a crucial role. Not because they burn a lot of calories, but because they help regulate cortisol, reducing stress, and indirectly helping your body release fat instead of holding on to it. The problem is, many people swing to another extreme. They train too much. They believe that more effort equals faster results. But if you're training while sleep-deprived, stressed, and underfueled, you're not helping your body burn fat. You're pushing it into a higher state of alert. Cortisol rises, the nervous system becomes overstimulated, and your body responds the only way it knows how to protect you, by holding on to energy. This is why some people train intensely, even hardcore, yet still can't lose belly fat. Not because they lack effort, but because they're sending the wrong signals to their body. The same applies to sleep and stress. They are not secondary factors. They are the foundation. During deep sleep, your body releases growth hormone, repairs tissues, and rebalances leptin and ghrelin, the hormones that regulate hunger and fullness. When your sleep is poor, this entire system becomes disrupted. You crave sugar more, you feel more fatigued, and your body becomes more likely to store fat. On top of that, chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated. And as mentioned earlier, high cortisol doesn't just make fat loss harder, it directs fat storage toward the abdominal area. This isn't a coincidence. It's biology. And when you start to see this whole picture more clearly, you realize something essential. Fat loss is not about forcing your body to change. It's about creating an environment where your body feels safe enough to change on its own. That's why extreme methods, eating very little, training excessively, neglecting recovery, often produce fast, short-term results, but fail in the long run. Your body isn't designed to endure punishment. It's designed to adapt, and if you go against that principle, it will push back. On the other hand, when you create a moderate calorie deficit around 15 to 20% below maintenance, you send a completely different signal. You're not threatening your body, you're teaching it that energy is still available, just slightly reduced. In that context, your body doesn't need to panic. It can begin using stored energy gradually and sustainably. That's the difference between losing fat successfully and losing it only to gain it back. And as you maintain this state long enough, a question most people care about becomes clearer. When does belly fat actually start to disappear? The answer is not immediately, and not after just a few days. In most cases, with a proper diet, consistent movement, and well-managed stress, noticeable changes in the abdominal area tend to appear around weeks 3 to 6. For some people, especially those with insulin resistance, hormonal imbalances, or chronic stress, it may take longer. But once it begins, the pace of change is often faster than you expect. And that's when you realize that all those previous weeks were not wasted. And then there comes a moment, not loud, not a dramatic switch, when your body starts to change in a very different way. No longer the fluctuating numbers on the scale like in the first week. No more cycles of excitement followed by disappointment. Instead, a strange kind of stability emerges. You wake up with steady energy. You're no longer obsessed with food. You can go for hours without feeling drained or craving sugar uncontrollably. And most importantly, your body begins to quiet down in a very positive way. This is the sign many people miss. They keep looking at the scale, still waiting for a bigger, faster number. But in reality, the most important signals aren't there. They're in how your body functions. When you truly start burning fat, you no longer feel pulled around by hunger. You're no longer dependent on constant eating just to stay alert. Instead, you feel a sense of control, as if your body has finally rediscovered its natural rhythm. You'll notice it in small details. Your clothes fit better around the waist even though your weight hasn't changed much. Your face doesn't just look slimmer, it looks sharper. When you move, your body feels lighter and more fluid. Not because you're forcing it, but because it has become more efficient. This is the point where your body is no longer working against you. It starts working with you. But this is also where a very common mistake appears. As soon as results begin to show, people become impatient. They want to speed things up. They eat even less. They train even harder. They think that if they've made it this far, pushing a bit more will double the results. What they don't realize is that the very balance they created is what produced those results in the first place. Once you break that balance, your body reacts. Not instantly, but enough to slow everything down. Insulin may fluctuate. Cortisol may rise. Hunger returns. And what once felt smooth and sustainable starts to feel difficult again. This is why so many people get close to the finish line, but never actually reach it. The truth is, burning fat is not the hardest part. Maintaining a fat-burning state is the real challenge. This is where your mindset needs to shift. If you see fat loss as a short-term campaign, you'll always end up back where you started. But if you begin to see it as a living environment, how you eat, sleep, move, and manage your energy every day, then results are no longer something you have to fight to keep. They become a natural outcome. People who maintain their physique aren't those who are 100% perfectly disciplined. They're the ones who sustain about 80% consistency enough to prevent the body from falling back into its old state. They understand that one off meal doesn't ruin progress, but abandoning the new habits entirely is what resets everything to zero. One powerful tool at this stage, often misunderstood, is the use of refeed days, where you increase carbohydrate intake in a controlled way. This isn't a cheat day, it's a strategic signal. By slightly increasing carbs, you help reset leptin, the hormone that regulates fullness and metabolism. You're telling your body energy is still available, and that helps prevent your metabolism from slowing down after a prolonged deficit. But even this needs to be done with awareness, not emotion. Because once you unconsciously return to old eating patterns, your body will respond quickly. It will store energy more efficiently than before. This is what science calls fat overshooting, rapid fat regain after dieting. And it's important to understand, this is not your failure. It's your body's survival instinct. That's why the goal was never to force your body to lose fat as fast as possible. The goal is to make your body feel safe enough to let fat go without needing to defend itself. And when you look back on this entire journey, you'll realize something very different from what you once believed. The question was never, why won't my belly fat go away? The real question is my body ready to let it go yet? Because at its deepest level, fat loss is not an act of force. It's a result of trust. Trust that you won't starve your body. Trust that you won't push it into chronic stress. Trust that you'll maintain your habits long enough for it to feel safe. And when that trust is established, your body no longer has a reason to hold on to that fat. It will let go. Not instantly. Not in the way you try to force it, but inevitably. So if you're in the middle of this journey, if you've moved past the initial rapid drop, if you're stuck in a plateau, or if things feel slower than expected, remember this: you're not stuck. You're exactly where most people give up. And if you keep going, not with urgency, but with understanding, the moment you've been waiting for will come. Not as a miracle, but as a natural consequence. And when it does, it won't just change your body, it will change how you see yourself.